Hey guys, welcome to today's video. We're going to start by doing serpentine belts on a 350 small block in my 84 K20. We're then going to move to doing carburetor tuning. This truck is tuned for sea level. I'm now 6,200 feet above sea level, so the carburetor needs a little bit of tuning to compensate for that. Air fuel mixture is not great for this elevation. I've tried driving the truck around town. It works, but it's not super happy about it, so we're going to tune for that. Then if we have time, we're going to dig into trying to figure out why my headlights decided to stop working a few days into the road trip. I'm not really sure what caused that, but as far as I can see, all the wiring is good. The headlights don't seem burnt out. The grounds are all good. I've read conflicting sources on whether there are fuses or not for the headlights. I can't find any. So we're gonna get the voltmeter out and the old, light bulb with a positive and negative wire and crawl up under the dash and see what we can find. So let's jump right into that. All right, so to get started on this project, you're gonna need a 13mm socket wrench, and that is to loosen up the adjustment on here. Now I need to switch this wrench over, because I currently have it set to tighten. Once we get this sucker on here, it's not too hard of a job to loosen it up. Just like that. We can slide this a little further back. Well, looks like we might need to loosen it a tad more. See if we can jimmy it down in there. And this belt is off. Now, here comes the fun part. You have to thread it through this fan in order to get it off, which can be an absolute pain in the butt. Doable, but not fun. And just like that, the old belt is off. Now, if I'm smart, what I will do is simply climb inside the engine bay, because my engine isn't hot and, well, there's enough room to have a party in here. So we're going to take our new belt right here, do essentially what I just did the first time, except for in reverse order. So spin the fan. Our belt is now looped around. Go down. And you get it notched into this groove like that around here and tighten it up. Now I have two belts to do. I'm gonna do the smaller one on the inside too. So I'm gonna do that one off camera, as that one's even more of a pain in the ass to get to. Okay, so plenty of blood, sweat, and tears later, I'm back to thread this belt, the one that we took off just a moment ago, back on. I did do this inner belt, so that's replaced. 10 of 10 would not do again, but I'll probably have to, because that's what owning vehicles is like. Yeah, my power steering pump there it's been slightly modified, so taking it off to put new power steering fluid in, or to change a belt, or to replace a part, not as much fun as it conventionally would be to do a belt. Like this front belt, which I'm popping on right here, this actually isn't that bad to do. It's a little tedious maybe, but it is completely manageable. Other belts, on the other hand, can be a nightmare. Now that I said that, this is going to become a royal pain in the butt. And try and make my life as hard as possible. There we go, though. So that's it popped out of here. Okay, well,
Huzzah, the belt is on. That was way harder than it should have been. Now let's see if I can even put this stupid bolt I took out back in. It appears I can. Turns out changing belts was not as quick and easy as I was hoping. Yeah, this was less fun than I was promised. Okay, that's gonna be it for the belts. Okay, so here we have the installed belts. We have the one closer here. This power steering fluid pump is a little tweaked. It's how it was when I got it. That's just kind of how it is. We've got this S piece of metal holding it in. It's a little janky. New power steering is definitely in line. Not the power steering doesn't work, it just, that belt makes me a little nervous. Got the belt on for the alternator and fan belt and the coolant pump. So all of that's good now. Let's give it a crank and see if she starts up. Like a dream, no issues, cranked right over. So I'll give it a quick rev and let's see how it does. Okay, well it still seems to rev out just fine. Belts are all fixed. Don't mind me, I have the camera on a funky tripod, and I'm sure this needs to get adjusted. Yeah, so belts are done. This is the part that I used on my truck. You can use anything you want. Let me grab one of the old belts. So this is one of the old belts. I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it, but there's kind of a grooved edge because it's been worn into the slots so far. And also, if you look at the, let's see if I can get this in some better lighting. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it or not, but the inside edge of this belt is completely cracked. So this belt was not long for the world. So I'm glad that we got that done. Next up, let's try and see the headlights. So these headlights here currently aren't working. They worked when I got the truck, so I'm not really sure what that's about. But let's try and trace the wiring on that. Okay, real quick, let's talk about the lighting. So the lights in this truck, the headlights, like the main headlights and the high beams, worked when I bought the truck. And they worked up until, I don't know, the day or two after. And the interesting thing is, they work as far as I can recall the night that I shut them off, when they last worked. And then the morning when I went and I pulled my switch that would turn my headlights on, I noticed that they weren't on and didn't really think anything of it. It wasn't really until that night that I started to be like, oh, I don't have headlights. Those might be nice to have. I've gone through what feels like every piece of material on this truck, which is by no means true, because there is pretty much everything under the sun about these trucks out there, but I couldn't find anything on the YouTube University on how to fix this stuff. And I have I think it's like 1,700 page long repair manual for this truck. And I'm going to be honest, I've only made it to page like 1,500 so far, so maybe I just need to read a little further into that. I also got a wiring diagram from the parts store that would indicate that there should be a fuse box on the passenger hand side of the truck up under the dash that would have a fuse for the headlights. Now, when I looked up under there, and I've looked extensively, it's not like I just glanced, I have yet to find any indication of an actual fuse box. So I'm kind of a little bit in a tricky situation of, is there a hidden fuse box that I don't know about? Is there no fuse and they're hardwired? If that is the case, then that becomes even more kind of confusing. Because if they're hardwired and they're not working, then that means that either the headlights have burnt up and gone out, or there's a fuse that's hidden somewhere along the line that I don't know about, or there's a fuse box that's hidden somewhere I don't know about, or some wiring got disconnected and I don't know about it. Now, I've looked at all the wiring. I've checked all the grounds. All the grounds are good, so I don't think it's that. The positive wires are good as far as I can tell now, which I'll show you in just a second here. Where the fuse box is mounted is up under the driver's side footwell, and where all the wires in the engine bay kind of go into that box is through the firewall, and there's a bunch of, it's kind of like a grid pattern almost, and there's a wire going through each one of the little boxes, and that's how they pass through the firewall. Now, that wouldn't really be a problem if the other side of that wasn't hidden right underneath the fuse box in a way that I can't really get to it. So I have to kind of guess as to what the wires look like on the inside of the cab, because they're not necessarily all original and they don't necessarily match the wire that's in the engine bay. So figuring out which wire exactly runs from point A to point B it's a little tricky, and so it's something I'm still working on. So yeah, we'll get it down, but it's gonna take a little bit of chasing. I do have, if I can find it in here, I have a multimeter, so that'll be helpful. And then I also have the old classic light bulb, negative positive wire. You hook it to your ground, you hook it to your positive, and if you have power, in theory, the little light bulb should light up. So if you're ever in a jam and you don't have a multimeter on you, it won't tell you the voltage. Well, the light bulb will be brighter or dimmer based on how much voltage you have, but it won't give you an exact number. But at least this will tell you if you have power or not, which is better than, not knowing at all. So highly recommend having one of these in your truck. I just throw this in my glove box and it's proved quite valuable so far. It's actually how I figured out where the wiper wiring was, and I now actually have those wired up to a switch, because lo and behold, the switch on the wheel here doesn't do anything. So there are lots of little wiring things that are gonna definitely be gone through on this truck. But I think for today, we're gonna start out with the multimeter since I now have one. I didn't have one at the time that I created that, so that was kind of my temporary solution to figuring out wiring. So yeah, let's crawl up under the dash and see what we can figure out. Hopefully we can sort it out. It's kind of tricky, and if anyone knows more about these trucks in the comments section, just drop down there your thoughts on it. Like I said, the lights worked fine. Like, they were nice and bright, they worked great, and then one day I went and put the high beams on and nothing happened. And there's no low beams either, so that's also a little confusing. It's possible I just don't know these trucks well enough and I'm completely missing something. I might have bumped another switch that has some impact on them and not even know. That's completely possible. Or when I was fixing the wiring for the wipers, I might have bumped a ground or done something and unwired something. So who knows? All right, let's get into this. Okay, that last clip you saw, I filmed yesterday. I stopped filming when, well, really right after that clip when it started pouring. And then an electrical storm rolled in, and I just decided for safety reasons playing, you know, with electricity in a giant metal truck probably wasn't the best idea. So anyhow, this morning I had a bit of an epiphany, which I just dropped out of the truck, but I'll get that in just a second. This right here, you should be able to see pretty well. So the way this switch would have mounted was like this, up inside, with the front of the dash being where my hand is. And there's a little round circle here that would have had a knob, as far as I understand, in there, that you would have twisted to dim or brighten the headlights. To my understanding, that knob slash the way you would, you know, dim or brighten them broke off while they were on. And the reason I say this is because as soon as I unplugged this, the headlights stopped working. I didn't really think about that until this morning, and lo and behold, this is the problem right here. And we'll go ahead and do a little demonstration of what I'm talking about. I could probably hardwire another switch in if I want, which I may do in the future. But this at least means that my headlights work now, which makes having this vehicle pass inspection a lot easier. So that's great. That's great. It kind of just floats around on my floor pan right now, which is not ideal. But we will either get a replacement one of these, although it doesn't have a, well, maybe it did have a serial number at one point, but it's no longer with us. So yeah, let's cut into a quick demonstration of what we're talking about, where this plugs in and how it affects the lighting. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so now for this to make sense, I'm going to show you how I turn the lights on normally and then explain how I think that this switch works. So if I flip this around and change this back to here, and I lighten this up so you can see, take this off. You see this knob right here? So when this knob is pulled all the way out, my headlights, and yes, this does come off, my headlights should be on. Now, if we come out here, which I need to do this so you can actually see, and don't mind that this lower headlight's taken out, that's for a whole other reason. So right now, this light, these side markers, which they normally work on this side, that side I need to replace. I took these out so that I could check sizing and a whole bunch of other stuff would work. If we come around to the back, the tail lights, and they are. So the tail lights are running right now. That's how it should be. That's all the lights on. So if we come back into here, and I twist this. So the way that this switch works is it spins. So right now everything's off. And then as you twisted, the dash lights would come on. Now it's daytime, so you're not gonna be able to see it. You turn them all the way, it also turns that light on. However, the main headlights aren't turning on right now, which they should be. So we're gonna push this all the way back in. I'm gonna throw the camera on a tripod, which it looks like you guys can see pretty well down in there. And so this is the plug that I'm talking about right here. So this plug would plug into this switch, just like this. And the way that I understand it, and so that's all plugged in now, so the circuit should be completed, is this switch right here that we just plugged in would have mounted in the dash in this hole. Which would make sense to me because you have your main headlights here, you'd have your headlight, like your main lights, dim and high beams, would be connected to this. So now if we pull this out, all the way, the headlights should be on. Come out here, spin this so you guys can actually see, and lo and behold, the headlights work. So I don't know if you guys remember just a second ago, those were not on. So, like we already covered, I don't know exactly when 100% went wrong in there. I guess the switches needed to complete the circuit, so either I need to get a new switch, or down in here I need to do some wiring. So I kind of need to sort that out and decide what I'm doing there. Okay, so that covers the headlights. At least they're on now. That's great. I need those to pass inspection. I do have some ideas to do some custom upgrades for the headlights. That should be pretty cool if it works out the way I want it to. And then the taillights, I would like to replace them. I personally am not a fan of that style. They're okay. They do their job, not the look that I think really fits this truck specifically. And I need to go through and replace the bulbs on the front side markers and the front running lights, which is not hard. I just need to go and get the parts for that. So that's all good. That covers the lighting. At least the lighting on the truck works again. Glad to know what the issue was. That makes me feel much better about driving the truck at night. And now to the carburetor. So I had said initially in the intro that I was going to try and tune the carburetor in this video. And I since have talked to some people local who are familiar with tuning carburetors at this altitude, and I've done a little bit more research on the carburetor that's on the truck. It's a Quadrajet. It's an okay carburetor. There's nothing really wrong with it, but I think that there's a non-zero chance that I'm going to switch over to like a Holley 600, 650, or an equivalent Edelbrock carburetor. Because they're a lot easier to tune. There's a lot more accessibility, and there's local guys who have the different size jets and everything, and they're super nice guys, and they're, you know, willing to help dial in the carburetor for this elevation, because, you know, I'm up at 6,000 feet, so actually I think 6,200 to be specific. So a little different than sea level, and for every 1,500 feet up you go in elevation, you basically add, like, it's a 2% difference. So for me at 6,000, that's 8%. So the jets definitely need to be changed, because you got to think at elevation you got lower, the air's thinner, so there's not as much air, and you still have the same amount of fuel going into the engine as you would at sea level. So the engine's running really rich, which means terrible fuel economy. It's not really good for the engine to be dumping that much gas in there, and the engine just wants to bog down. So if you change the jets out to a smaller jet, and you're running less fuel into the engine, you know, you basically want to balance your air-fuel ratio. And right now I have too much fuel. And when you have a balanced ratio, the engine runs beautifully, and you're not just dumping fuel into the cylinders and having it go out your exhaust, which I can literally watch happen if I run the truck right now. And with gas prices, that kind of hurts my soul. So basically what I'm trying to say is that's a whole other video. I need to get a new carburetor, and I need to set that up. That's basically the conclusion there. So that's for another video. I think today we're just gonna have done, you know, the belts and the lighting, 2 out of 3 things. I'm pretty happy with that. And to be able to leave the video off with those 2 running, and you know, I looked at trying to tune this carburetor, but I don't want to tinker with it too much and end up causing more issues for myself down the road than just holding off, you know, not driving the truck too much right now, and just buying the right parts essentially and installing that and then tuning it. I think that would be much more valuable to me. So that's probably what we're gonna do, and I have some sponsorships
and partnerships that I've done with a few companies. So there should be some pretty cool install videos coming soon. Just waiting to get parts in, essentially. So yeah, that's all for today's video. I'm gonna try and hopefully upload once or twice a week if possible. It's gonna entirely depend on, you know, how much content I can film, and how much there is to do on the truck without waiting for parts to show up. So yeah, thank you for everyone for watching. I really appreciate everybody that watches these videos, and I hope you found it enjoyable or helpful, or, you know, all that good jazz. So, you know, drop any comments or suggestions or opinions or whatever you think in the comments. Throw a like if you enjoyed it. You know, subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of stuff. And I hope everyone has a great day.